Hi, this video is going to take a look at how I apply the campus-wide outcome of critical thinking and the assessment rubric that was developed for collecting data on critical thinking to a specific assignment in my communication studies course. Hopefully by taking a look at how someone might go through the thought process of using this tool will help you in thinking about how you will use the tool in your course, even though your content and assignment are different than what you'll see in mine. So this is a assignment that I have students do weekly to synthesize and exhibit or practice critical thinking skills when it comes to course content. So what the assignment does is ask students to execute 5 critical thinking skills related to the content of the course for the week. So the things that they've read or watched or that kind of thing. So what they do in the assignment is they come up with 5 new facts or vocabulary words. They make connections between the content that they viewed for the week and themselves or other materials. They ask questions about the content. They pose questions about the content. They make applications of the content to their own lives. And then they also put themselves in the shoes of someone else and ask themselves how that person might view this content differently and why. So when I have the students submitted, when the students have submitted these to Canvas, I use a rubric to grade them. And, let me get my rubric back. And the first 2 items you'll see here are my grading rubric for this assignment. So I have read this assignment and I know that some of the sections are incomplete, partly because they don't include citations, which is part of what I expect for this assignment. And then I know the student completed a peer review. Then I get down to the campus-wide outcome rubric for critical thinking that I have imported and connected to this assignment. And when I'm looking at this rubric and the language in this rubric, the areas that are most salient to this particular assignment are the student's ability to thoroughly explain relevant rationale and to evaluate meaningful conclusions and viewpoints. In this particular case, this student doesn't really provide the context or the explanation that I need to know that they can do this. So for me, in this particular example, on this particular assignment, this exhibits below average critical thinking. Once I have made that assessment, I can save this, and that data is collected and can be pulled from an administrative level at a later point. I want to take a look at the same assignment but conducted by a different student, so it's a different example. And this example, like I said, I've read already, and I happen to know, because I've read it, that this student does a better job of explaining the relevant rationale and generating meaningful viewpoints. And so for me, this is an above average example of the same assignment. They've also completed these other items. So that's how I would assess this particular example of this assignment. As you go through and grade your own assignments and use these campus-wide outcome rubrics to do so, you'll have to make assessments about which pieces of the rubric are most relevant or important to a given assignment. You don't necessarily need to be able to apply each piece. It's okay if you're really looking at one line in there or one verb that really stands out. That's why they're written the way they are, is so that they can be really flexible across different types of assignments and different content areas. So hopefully taking a look at how I might apply this has helped you think about how you might do it. And as you get started, I hope that you find that it gets easier and easier for you to be able to assess where a student fits in a particular level. Thanks.